Hey, everybody. Hey. This is the Jimmy Doane Show. This is Counselor Curtis.
And it's Jimmy Doane here on a Sunday. We do this, what, twice a week?
Twice a week at 4 o'clock.
Wednesdays and Sundays.
That's right.
Just about 4 o'clock.
So you could be seeing us live. Sometimes we have a little problem the last few weeks with the stream. If it's a staccato stream, I will be uploading a better copy right after the show. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you if you're joining us live. Today is the 9th of September.
2018. You know what I want to tell you, you know what I got?
What's that?
What I found, interestingly enough, you ready for this?
Uh-huh.
I found a Gainesville Sun newspaper from September 12th.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that was when they were, that was the
2001?
one. 2001, right. So our next show is going to be on the 12th. So I'm going to show you that paper.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'll bring that paper in and show you all the stuff and everything. It's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, boom, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So what's going on this week?
Well, one really quick thing we want to dive into before we get into the nuts and bolts of stuff, and there are some things here. There's some voting things and.
But a quick thing first.
A quick thing first.
Okay.
I saw that what's the girl's name that did the white power signal?
Oh, yeah, behind Judge Kavanaugh?
Yeah. I mean, isn't this hysterical?
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, here's the deal. You know,
Trolling them,
right? I mean, this is what's so great. Wasn't she interviewed or something? I mean, after she did the first time.
I'm confident.
Yeah,
I'm confident she got calls.
Yeah,
everybody and their brother called, but when everybody figured out she was half Mexican, half Jewish,
right?
I think that pretty much silenced the.
Well, but what was fascinating was that now this obviously she did it for for purpose this time. No mistake on the. They had
it's the letter F.
Yeah, right, or 9.
9, yeah, exactly.
So, but what was funny about it was they had all the theories on what it could have been. There was a half a dozen at least.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But not only the white power. I was the one. The big one was the white power. But I mean, there were. Oh yeah. No,
there were others.
Other things that it could have been.
Oh okay.
9s and 6s and so forth. And I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway. Now, of course, but it was an accident. Was it an accident? Well, certainly this time it wasn't no accident.
No.
She was in there. This is a little resume enhancement for her. I can tell you that.
Well, I think she was just taking back a little of the moment after having been savaged for her inadvertent hand gesture.
Right. Yeah, she was trolling them.
Oh yeah,
She was nailing. All right. Well, I've got a couple things here we can start off with. In no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. Incoming freshmen at George Mason University recently had an opportunity to attend another orientation created specifically for black students. Wait a minute. An event called Black Freshman Orientation, hosted by the Black Student Alliance, the additional orientation occurred on August 25th.
You wouldn't want to separate people out by their skin color.
No, I mean, what is fascinating to me about this, of course, is first of all, it did not free them from having to take the regular orientation, which is for everybody. And they said, that it was voluntary, and
but is it equal?
Make it equal, and of course, if you were a black supporter, you could go to this orientation. But it's basically it was to make this new students feel welcome at the Virginia-based university. Now, George Mason,
like that's going to make you feel welcome. Hey. And for you black folks,
that's right.
We got another presentation coming up after this.
That's right. I mean, seriously. You talk about people that are just, it's just stunning to me. And George Mason, interestingly enough, that is where I believe Walter Williams teaches.
Okay.
Well, he's a black guy, and he's a real famous conservative guy. He's written a bunch of books. He's on a par with Walter Williams and the other
Thomas Sowell.
Thomas Sowell, right? Those two guys. And I think Walter Williams teaches at George Mason. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I mean, he teaches really conservative economics courses.
Okay.
Writes a lot for the Lou Rockwell Report and so forth. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see if he ends up being a mentor in an event. Of course, he wrote a very extensive book on on racism and why it was a joke and shouldn't, not a joke, but it was stupid or whatever, all that kind of stuff. So the event is dedicated for incoming freshmen who identify as black or are supporters of black people. Now, who was the girl?
Rachel Doane.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Come on, y'all.
No, I'm
Come on,
serious.
everybody.
This is.
Come on now.
It's just funny that they. That this
What would be funny is if they showed up to do it and it was all white people.
yeah, right.
No, I don't think y'all understand. Oh no.
We got it.
That's right.
Oh my God. All right, moving on. Next item. The chief of Russia's space agency is claiming that the small hole that caused an air leak. Now this is where it's wrong. At the International Space Station last week wasn't caused by a meteorite, as originally thought, but was deliberately drilled and could be evidence of sabotage. Now, for what it's worth, apparently, it says later in the article, and the
What's
whole,
funny about this is there's only 2 people on the space station, so.
well, not
No,
only
I'm just
that,
kidding.
but this was on the Soyuz.
Okay.
It was on the capsule that was up there.
Okay.
So it wasn't on the space. That was the misnomer on this. Apparently, it was not on the space station.
Right.
It was on the capsule, which
It was on a space station.
right, whatever, and it was 0.008 of an inch, which is it's like that
Tiny.
Yeah, it's small, 0.008 of an inch.
Well, that's why they said the astronaut plugged it with their finger. Or
Right, and
something.
then they got all kinds of tape and everything like that. And so but basically the thinking now is that they went in there and they examined the hole and said they had specifically and definitely determined that it had been done from the inside. Now, what they're also saying is maybe it happened on launch or in manufacturing or something of this
Right.
space capsule. They don't know, but I mean, there's no apparent, as near as I can figure, there's no danger to the space station itself. But to
Right.
the capsule.
Not for that micro hole.
Right. No, that's right. So.
And I was kidding about the 2 people. Obviously, if there were only 2 people, one of them would know the
Yeah,
other.
right.
But there's 6
Say,
people.
will you hold that drill in your hand?
Say! Well, no, there's 6 people up there. So, but that's still quite a small pool.
Yeah. Yeah. All the suspects can gather in one room.
Right.
I mean, there's even fewer suspects than there are in Clue.
Right. Yeah. The engineer did it with the
right.
micro drill.
That's right. Oh my God. So anyway, but I mean, I can tell you right now, from being in the drilling business, an 0.008 drill is pretty small.
That's teeny.
It's teeny, and I mean, I don't know what it'd be
It's like
made
a
of.
laser or something.
Well, no, 0.008 is I can't remember what it was, but the holes that are in that hold the printed circuits, the little things that look like caterpillars. Those I think are 0.010. So it's smaller than that hole.
Right.
Which is minuscule. So anyway, deliberate, accidental. I guess they're going to find out or whatever. But it's the Ruskies' problem, so it's not ours. Now, here's another thing that brings us with marketing. Los Angeles prosecutors say they have charged more than 500 people with misdemeanors for illegal marijuana operations.
What?
Yeah. City Attorney Mike Foyer said Friday that police and his office continue to target the hundreds of businesses that are not complying with the local, state, and state rules since recreational pot has become legal in California. So they filed 120 marijuana cases against 515. Now, why do you think this is?
Well, we talked about this.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, well, we talked about that it was going to happen.
Oh, okay.
Because what they did was, when they quote unquote made it legal, as they say, they actually clamped down on a huge number of operations because of the new requirements and regulations concerning the quality and the accountability, all types of tracking and regulation, basically.
Yeah.
They put so much regulation on over their business that they drove a lot of people out of business. And
Well, not only that, you ready for this? California blew it when they made legal sales way too tax heavy. In Palm Springs, California, the writer of this article spoke to the shop owner on 1 gram of pot. The state adds $15 and the city making $30, before adding the profit and cost of the product. So there was this $45
Per gram.
per gram
In taxes.
In taxes, right. Never mind the regulations and everything.
So just to give people perspective, I think that the black market price is like $15 per gram
Yeah.
or something. Something like that, $20 per gram.
But I mean, here
So
they are.
if you were going to add on,
Well, they're going to add 45 on, and then you got to, and then their cost, $20 maybe. You know, in other words, it's going to be
Yeah.
$50 or more a gram.
Right, so
and
there's
and
no
the black
way
market
you-
is 15. Of course,
Right.
who's not going to take care of that?
right, exactly.
So this is, I mean, it's just amazing. But those charged will face up to 6 months in jail and $1,000 fines. Now these are misdemeanors, right? That's what it says.
Yeah, that's a misdemeanor. 6 months and $1,000.
That seems strong.
I know. I've talked for a long time that there should be a third-degree misdemeanor in existence, and something that the maximum punishment is a week or a day, a night in jail or something. That's
A weekend, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. You get out of control and yell, blah blah blah, or something. But no. In Florida here, the minimum second-degree misdemeanor carries up to 2 months in jail,
Okay.
which you can be sentenced to for failure to change the address on your driver's license after a couple of months. I mean, and everybody will tell you, well, they'll never sentence you to that.
But then why is the law there?
Well, exactly. then seriously, make it a day or something.
Well, make it a $5 fine. I mean, what?
Well, that could be a civil thing, obviously, civil infraction. The only reason it's not is because it's state.
Oh, that's true.
But
Well, at any rate, this is, as we talked about before, we could see this coming.
yeah, this is overregulation. They're going to blow it, or they're blowing it right now,
Well, of
which
course, see,
means
this
they're
is-
going to.
The beauty of this is they got a whole bunch. How many people did they get here? 515 people, and if every one of them gets a $1,000 fine, I mean that's where they're making their money. Screw the taxes.
Well, that's the city and such,
Yeah.
and the county and the state, but obviously all those people are going to be replaced immediately in whatever market they were in, black,
Right. Well,
gray,
they already
or
said that
white.
they've got Police Chief Michael Moore says hundreds of illegal businesses remain, but the charges serve as a warning that others, the city will take action.
Right.
And they targeted not only the pot shops, but the delivery services and the growing operations.
Sure, why not?
Everything, the entire chain.
What they fail to see is, of course, that a market is a lot like a river system. You can take, and the people are like water in the river system.
Okay.
You can take some out, and it's gonna fill right in.
Fill
Just
right in.
come right, because the market remains.
Right.
So they didn't affect anything. They're gonna a blip in the market by getting those 115 people, and their jobs will be filled again tomorrow. And
Might even be a good thing for some of the people that are still out there. They might, instead of getting $15, they could get $20 for a week or two, a gram in the illegal market. You know.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so moving along, another governmental thing. This is also is here in Alachua County in Florida. A federal judge has ordered 32 counties statewide here in Florida to provide sample ballots in Spanish to accommodate thousands of Puerto Ricans who have moved to Florida
We
since.
talked about this. We did
We
this
did?
story. Yeah.
Huh?
This was.
I don't remember. I wonder why this showed up as newish. It says he issued the order on Friday, and today is Sunday, calling English language ballots a detriment to voters who only speak Spanish. One of the things that's kind of interesting, in a way, normally I would say that here in the States, English is the language, blah, blah, blah. If you don't, you should at least learn enough to be able to read the ballot, I guess, or something along those lines if you're going to do it. But they are American citizens.
Right, and this all has to do, what they're suing under is the accommodation. There's an act which basically says, okay, Puerto Ricans, you're in, and we're going to accommodate you, your language, and that kind of thing. And so we're going to provide ballots in some reasonable measure. And what they're trying to do, I think, is this is just an attack sort of generally on the anti-immigration people, and this is just a way to promote
I just wonder on the logistics of it. They did say some of the people here, of course, the government takes forever, but they said they thought it would be difficult for them to institute all the changes the groups asked for in such a short time span. Remember, the election is a couple months away or whatever it is, and said the Puerto Rican voters deserve equal treatment. But the problem is when you actually go to the voting, if you're going to go to the voting booth. I understand if you go down and get a absentee type ballot or one of those things, I suppose you could have that translated into Espanol. Although interestingly enough, there's a bunch of things on there for Constitution, so they're going to have to translate the constitutional things into Spanish, which would be
it's
kind of
very
interesting.
difficult to get an accurate and equal translation.
That's not all. That's open for suits, and but the other thing is that even if you walk in to the place, they've got the ballots there, that you punch. So they're going to have to reprint all of those, I guess.
Well, right, and that's the difficulty in why we don't do it, and why I would argue that we shouldn't do it. Me personally, I think we only need to have we should have unofficial language, and all of our official printings and documents and ballots and everything should be in one language. That's our common connection. Of course, as you know, I'm for amnesty and letting everybody in. So, but at the same time, I don't think we should charge all our citizens to create ballots in everybody's home language. Part of what you do when you get here is you learn the language. And
right.
Trust me, like we talked about before, the kids will learn the language anyway.
Yeah. Well, we've got 18 million people here in Florida, and 1 million Puerto Ricans, I don't know, something.
Probably, that's probably right. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's increased a lot because of the hurricane devastation.
Right.
But so, my thought is bring them all in, but come on, look, they're not going to have any real problems with the ballot. Like you said, you can get it early. I would also expand voting. You and I disagree on that too. You like to have a single day. I would give people like a month to vote. And I would say, look, it's October or November it is, whatever, learn about it this weekend, go vote on Monday. That way it accommodates everybody's different schedules and everything.
The way I look at those, other than the, when you think about it, other than the ballot initiatives, which are 75 words,
mm-hmm.
and some of those are just ludicrous anyway, but the other voting, it's in Spanish already. The names are there, Bob Jones. I mean, if you know who these people are, it's not like it's
There's nothing to say about Bob
No,
Jones.
it's either you're voting for that guy or not.
I agree. There's no Spanish translation for Bob Jones.
No. Roberto Jones.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's that's it. I'm with you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's, as I say, the ballot initiatives are something else that we have here that are kind of bad. But still, it's to me, if you've been here since look, that hurricane was a year ago. And I don't care who you are. I mean, I've managed to pick up enough Spanish in 4 months to be able to kind of get around a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is all
and you can also remember now, you've got a ton of people, all your neighbors. When you come up here, with people that've been here for years. They speak English, so I mean, at least a lot of them do. And you go ask them.
Yeah, again, I think you're taking this seriously. I don't think it's a serious effort for what it's alleged to be. I think it exists for an auxiliary purpose. It's a pretext for raising the issue of immigration and for attacking their opponents.
Well, it's interesting that the judge has, it's a federal judge, interestingly, 32 counties. Now, we have 67 counties in Florida.
Yeah.
And so 32 of them, roughly half, are have to
non-compliant.
I wonder which ones are not.
Well, yeah, it's the ones all north of Osceola or something.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, that's interesting. So we'll always have a lawsuit. Now, the other thing that is happening here, we have another immigrant here in Florida, maybe, by our show on Wednesday or Thursday, maybe, is Florence.
Yes.
I looked at the spaghetti monster. You see that they have I was looking at this one where they have 100 tracks.
Uh-huh.
Some of them go straight over to Miami. Others miss the miss the United States entirely and circle out to the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch in the middle there, and they're talking about look out for South Carolina, Georgia, who knows what. I mean, I have no idea. But Mrs. Jimmy, of course, is really batting down the hatches here.
Oh, I know. She's
panic-stricken that we're going to have trees. Trees will be falling down, and
devastation,
locusts and frogs.
Yeah.
So anyway, it says it's a relatively small tropical system, and it says they're both vulnerable to both ideal and poor environmental conditions, whatever that means. I don't know.
Well, it says it's going to whip up to a Category 4.
Whoa.
And I saw a cone that put it squarely between Charleston and Norfolk.
Okay, right. But see, and if it's smallish enough, that is not going to affect us this much.
No. But if you're in the Outer Banks or something,
right? Oh yeah,
you're going to take it on the chin.
Well, not only that, of course, a lot of the rain is in the outer rim of the hurricane.
Right.
Okay, so this is another thing that we've decided to do for some reason. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has authorized the release of $1.2 billion in U.S. military assistance to Egypt, despite human rights concerns that have held up previous funding. And so the State Department said Friday that it's notifying Congress that Pompeo had signed national security waivers and allowing the money as foreign military financing, or FMF as they call it, to be spent. This is $1.2 billion to Egypt. Now, Egypt, to me, is a lot like Turkey in a way. I mean, they're no real friend of ours. I mean, this is their...
Well, so this is our normal payment to them. And we suspended it because... I can't remember the exact...
What's his name? The previous guy had withheld it because of human rights abuse.
Right. And it was like one particular act, like when they used their jets to run over to Qatar or something. Right. And so this was just a little political maneuver on our part to withhold the cash here. But I think we were always going to give it to them. But I'm with you. I mean, what the heck are we doing? But this is just... a vestige of our colonial seed money, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to love us even more, right?
Right, exactly.
And so they're going to, of course, they're going to buy our planes now.
Right. Well,
so
that's probably the deal.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. You've got to be kidding me. And then a little scrape off the top.
Right. Well,
the rest of them. But I thought it was interesting that the department said Friday the Trump administration still has quote serious concerns about the human rights situation in Egypt and would continue to raise those concerns with Egyptian officials, but they're not. I mean, this is the old...
We will continue to raise the serious concerns.
We're going to write you a note.
That's right.
By God, and you're not getting off lightly on this.
That's right.
Oh, it is interesting.
I will tweet words at you.
That's right. Oh my.
I will tweet emojis, the wagging finger emoji.
That's right, the wagging, or send them a
little GIF.
A GIF, right? Yeah, that's right. No.
That's right.
Right out of what was it? The first
Jurassic
Park. No.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so moving right along, we're moving right along here. This is going to be a short day. Looks like.
We'll see. I've got something pretty substantial at some point.
Okay, this is one other thing I like. Former President Barack Obama have visited the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign on Friday to accept the school's Ethics in Government Award and to offer his state and talk about the state of the economy. Ooh, that's good.
We've got an award for you, sir. Won't you please?
Well, he got the Peace Prize, so
Oh, yeah.
So he's the most ethical president we've ever had, and so he got an award for that.
Is that what it says?
No, but I'm sure that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
So he found plenty of time to denigrate the Republicans for allegedly stoking fear in these dangerous and extraordinary times. He also dedicated a lot of the speech to patting himself on the back for everything from the improving economy to supposedly...
Let's not get political.
No. Not a political. What was all told, the former president referred to himself, I, my, and me more than 102 times in 64 minutes.
Under my administration.
It's just, he said... Of course, everything that has happened with the Trump is because he started it.
The Trump
administration, yeah.
Oh.
So when you hear about this economic miracle that's been going on, when the job numbers come out, and suddenly Republicans are saying it's a miracle I have to remind them kindly that actually those numbers are the same as they were, years
Well,
past.
that's true, actually.
Yeah, I know.
There is no job. Mrs. Jimmy wants to say 4-point-something%.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. So anyway, he goes in, don't tell me your vote doesn't matter. And of course, he wants everybody to get out and vote.
Well, everybody, please.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. So anyway.
It doesn't.
Your vote is it's a joke. If you think you're actually going to make a difference, it's a joke.
Well, all you get to vote for in this country is a person. And of course, your choices are very, very limited.
Mm-hmm.
And this person, then the only control they have over anything is they get to vote in and amongst a group of other people about certain issues that may come up.
Well, yeah, you have to understand when you say certain issues, it's interesting because the government has gotten so large now that each one of these people have got like 100 separate constituents as far as, money going out and money coming in.
Sure.
And some of them are diametrically opposed.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at is what do these people really get to vote on at the end of the day?
Right.
It's not much.
No.
And of course your control over them at that point is goose egg.
Right.
Because they're already elected.
Right.
So, like you say, they have 100 different constituents. Who knows who they're going to please?
Right.
So yeah, all in all, your vote is a very limited power. But the concept is it's not supposed to matter so much. If the leaders don't have a whole lot of power, then we don't really care what they're doing up there. If their biggest order of business is a checkers game or something, or passing a resolution giving an accommodation to the state of Michigan for producing cars or something, I'm just making something up.
I know. It's obvious.
As opposed to voting themselves hundreds of billions of our dollars.
Well, the fact is that they vote, billions and tens and hundreds of billions to their constituents, like the ag people and so forth. And
I'm saying it's off the rails. I'm saying that's true. I'm saying it's not supposed to be. We're not supposed to care.
As I've always said, is the old Willie Sutton thing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when you have a $4.2 trillion economy, there's people going to want to get a hold of some of that money, and those
it's
guys.
It's a runaway train.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, it totally is. All right, now the next item I've got. This is I'm going to come back to Elizabeth Warren. You've got something to say on her, don't you?
No.
No,
actually.
okay. Oh, well, then I'll go on to that. Senator Elizabeth Warren called on White House officials Thursday to remove President Trump from the office as unfit to handle the job. Unfit. Wait a minute. She wants to use the 25th Amendment.
Right.
Not impeachment.
Right.
Anything like that. But the 25th, which, as I recall, in order to remove him with the 25th Amendment, it's a lot more than impeachment and trial, isn't it?
It's more because, well, first of all, you have to allege. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, you have to allege incompetence,
right.
And not like general incompetence, but like literal incompetence.
You're going to have
Good luck with that.
You're going to have to get Sigmund Freud up there.
Exactly. There's no way you're going to look. They've been trying to paint Trump as hysterical and incompetent a lot, and I want to get to that in a minute when we talk about I want to talk about the op-ed piece some more.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
But they have been trying to paint him as that for a while now, but they're far from being credible on that issue.
But I mean, of course, what she did, it says shortly after the interview. She talked about this thing here about 25th Amendment, and she had an interview with somebody on MSNBC or something. Shortly after the interview, Ms. Warren sent out a fundraising letter. Mm-hmm. Making the same case for removing Trump. This letter asks the recipients to chip in for Ms. Warren's 2018 Senate re-election campaign and to sign a petition titled "Tell the Cabinet if Trump is unfit, invoke the 25th." So, and then she adds, quote, "This isn't about politics."
Oh, no.
No. This is about the safety of our children.
Right. Oh, children, of course.
The nation, the national security of our nation, and the future of our democracy. Tell the cabinet, if Trump is unfit, invoke the 25th.
Just our democracy, not the future of democracy in the universe?
No, but I'm surprised she didn't get the elderly and the infirm.
Yeah.
And the sick. We got the children.
Yeah, that was good.
That was good. She got the children.
That's a double. That's at least a double.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sick and the infirm or the elderly would have brought her home.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what I'm always saying is it's the Yeah, the infirm, the halt, the lame, and the blind.
There you go.
And so that would be it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the op-ed piece.
Okay.
Conservative activist and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, is offering a $50,000 reward for information on the anonymous White House official who published a blistering anti-Trump New York Times op-ed. Mr. Kirk has also declared war on the deep state, which some says behind the chaotic portrayal of President Trump's administration. So, what do you think? The op-ed piece. I mean, well, okay, what do you think?
Here's what I think. I've actually spent quite a bit of time in the last couple of days thinking about this, and I'm calling bullshit.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
You are calling. Okay, now tell me about this.
Here's the thing. At this point, I'm convinced that the op-ed is contrived.
Really?
Yes. And I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what
Okay.
my analysis is here. I'm with everybody else that I want to think New York Times, journalism, vetting, these things. There's a process, right?
Well, the guy talked about it.
Everybody wants to accept that, and I accepted it at face value because that's what you do at first. But it stinks. It stinks. First of all, First of all, the language itself. The person, whoever wrote the thing, is obviously vociferously anti-Trump.
Okay.
They use more insults than they do paragraphs in the entire. There's like 20 names that the writer calls the president.
Okay.
And that is just so weird. And that comes from somebody who is totally not on the president's side. And then, but here's my big issue with the whole.
Maybe it was
op-ed.
Rachel Maddow that wrote it.
I'm telling you, I would not be surprised if at this point, if the New York Times came forward and said, "We wrote it. We did it to show how believable such an op-ed piece would be." And look, the reports were everybody from young staffers to the VP were considered as the quote-unquote traitor. Doesn't this underscore how ridiculous this administration is? That's what I'm expecting at this point. Because here's the thing: the essay, the op-ed does not do what it purports to do. And anybody who wrote it would have known that. That is to say, it purports to be somebody in the White House, in a senior position,
Right.
who is writing to the New York Times for, what would you say? Is it a warning to the people that the White House is in turmoil? Or is it a reassurance to the people that the White House is stable? Which of those things does it appear to be?
Huh.
And if you think about it, it tries to be both of those things. It conflicts itself.
Okay.
If it were a reassuring piece, if you really wanted to reassure the people, as it purports to do, you wouldn't go on and on about how incompetent the president is.
Okay.
You would say something like, no matter how it appears from the outside, know that everything is running smoothly on the inside.
But it didn't say that.
I know. It went on and on about this place is a wreck, and oh my God, it's off the rails. He does things that are ill-advised and half-baked, and he's Looney Tunes and impetuous and childish and incompetent. But don't worry about it, because, it says, the people in his administration are doing whatever the heck they want to do anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, how is that reassuring?
Yeah.
It's not. That's all the essay is saying is it's completely out of control. It's out of this guy's control. There's a guy who's in charge who is totally inept and ineffective. But don't worry, because he's not really in charge.
Ah, okay, I see what you're saying. Right.
That's
right. It's all the minions out there that are actually doing the stuff.
right.
And the roadblock here, all the many roadblocks.
And that's no reassurance at all. I mean, that's nothing. That just tells you it's definitely out of control. And so I can't imagine that anybody would think that this is any type of reassurance to the people. It is written...
It wasn't supposed to be reassurance.
Okay, then let's take it the other way. If it's supposed to be an alarm bell,
Yeah.
okay, it's supposed to be a, oh my God, watch out, for the love of God,
We're doomed.
We're doomed, okay? Then you're gonna do it anonymously, and you're gonna stay in the administration
Right.
and hide and hope he doesn't find you.
Yeah.
Your boss, who you believe is this impetuous child, you're gonna call him out in the New York Times that you know is his biggest enemy on the planet. He has declared war on this particular group. I'm doing the white symbol, white power, accidentally here, and he is. He's doing this. You're going to throw him under the bus to his worst enemy, and you don't think he's going to come after you? Like, of course he would come after you. Of course he would come after you. So that means you wouldn't do it that way. If that were your goal, you would just hide. You would just stay hidden. You wouldn't warn anybody. You would just be like, okay, we're in control of this thing. We got to steer this thing.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, let's not say anything for the love of God, because you know he's going to know about it, and you know it's like poking him right in the eye to give it to the New York Times.
Yeah.
And you already believe this guy is impetuous, childish, impetulant, makes rash decisions, blah, blah, blah. Of course he's going to come after you and everybody else that you just named. You just implicated all of the people in the quote-unquote steady state. I mean, Obama did lie detector tests. You don't think...
okay, that's right, yeah.
So that's not unheard of or anything. So it doesn't make any sense that it's not a warning, because you wouldn't do it that way. You wouldn't put a warning out there, because you're also alerting the guy you're warning against.
Right.
And it's not a reassurance, because it throws everybody in the White House up under the bus. And then you go back to the language, and it says things like, Trump favors dictators. Well, he doesn't favor dictators. He pumps them up. It's gamesmanship. It says Trump doesn't like our allies. No. That's brinksmanship. He's putting them down in order to negotiate. That's all just negotiations. And it just reads like somebody from the left wrote it. You know, you look at Woodward's thing.
His book's coming out this week, isn't it?
Woodward, and he's all over the press. And I read an article today, and he goes on and on about how crazy Trump is. And he says things like, Trump is crazy because he says things like, my subordinates don't understand business. We're spending too much on these policies. That doesn't sound crazy. You know, he says things like, Trump sounds crazy because he said, we need to bring our troops home from Korea. That doesn't sound crazy. But then he quotes a general saying, these troops prevent World War III from happening. Like, really? Those troops prevent World War III? Like, those are the ones?
And what do you think the general's going to say anyway?
Of course.
He's a general. Yeah. He's a military guy.
Well, what about the guys in the Philippines then? Or the guys over in Germany?
Or any of another 150 countries or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so they all prevent World War III from happening?
Yeah.
So Woodward... again, tries to paint this picture, and they all use the same language. They talk about these existential qualities that Trump has, like he lies all the time, or this big one in the op-ed was his immorality, his amorality. His big problem is his amorality. Like, really? Like, not any specific act? Like, he's just amoral, and yet what has happened because of this alleged amorality? All these Me Too people, all these hashtag Me Too people have come out. Nobody's come out and accused President Trump of actual sexual assault.
No.
You know, people will say he confessed to sexual assault when he was talking to Billy Bush.
Yeah.
That's not a confession.
And he tried to hush up what's-her-face too and stuff.
Well, but those were consensual encounters.
Right, that's right.
Totally different. So I just think this...
So you're... Okay, well, I think this is fascinating because what I talked about, I think last time, was that whoever wrote this is going to show up, but it's going to be found out one way or the other, because there's 3 or 4 people, at least maybe half a dozen people, that know who this quote who this fellow is or not. The other thing, though, is if the New York Times ever comes clean, they are going to. I mean, what would happen to their truth? Their what do you call it?
Vetting and verification process?
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, their believability. I mean, their
veracity.
Veracity, yeah. They would just go to, all the news is fit to print, and suddenly they've done this joke. They've done this April Fool typey thing or whatever.
Well, they'll say something like, "We're in unusual times, and we had to take this step." And
but how do you know if it's not going to be tomorrow the same thing?
Well, and that's why we did it anonymously. You'll know when we publish the name of the source, which we always do for op-ed pieces. We always publish the name for op-ed pieces. So, yeah, I agree. It would be a big hit to their credibility. I think they're already taking hits all over the place.
Yeah, I think they are.
And
too.
so it wouldn't surprise me that they would take a big chance like
You
this.
can go back, as a matter of fact, they've had 1 or 2 scandals where some of their reporters, didn't write. They stayed home and wrote this stuff and everything.
Right, and they could do the same thing. Oh, this was contrived by 2 or 3 of our editors. We fired one of them or something.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. They throw somebody up under the bus. But yeah, I'm just not. I am waiting to see if this comes out. If it's a senior Trump official, the person is dumb as rocks.
Yeah, that's true.
And
It's hard. Yeah, and of course that doesn't, and like, so what?
well, right. I mean, he hires the best people.
Yeah, right.
As we know. Right, exactly. So it actually wouldn't surprise me that it could be somebody, which is why I believed it to begin with. But at this point,
well, I think you've got a fascinating. That's really fabulous. I never would have gone that route that you just did, but we're going to find out, aren't we?
Yeah, we will. You
That'd
just
be
did
great.
double white power.
Yeah, that's right. I know that. All right. Let's see. I got something else here, and then I've got one other thing. Okay. The Justice Department announced charges today against a North Korean national who U.S. authorities have accused of being behind a massive attack of Sony in 2014 and the WannaCry ransomware attack last year. They've identified this North Korean programmer who was accused of being part of a state-sponsored. Anyway, as they did when they indicted the Russians, they've indicted the North Korean guy. I mean,
All right.
yeah, go get him. When you just think of it, this is like no news that I can imagine.
Well, it's just some guy working. He's just getting his paycheck. Oh, we indicted somebody.
Yeah. Okay, the last thing I have is, hold on a second, where is it? Just a minute. Yeah. This is from Iran. Apparently, our stuff is working in Iran. Iran's rial fell to a record low on Wednesday as worried residents in Tehran lined up outside beleaguered money changers as part of a staggering 140% drop in the currency's value since America pulled out of the nuclear deal only 4 months ago. Okay,
140%.
Those who went to work at the start of the Iranian week on Saturday saw their money shed a quarter of its value by the time they left office on Wednesday.
Wow.
A quarter of it. I mean, you can imagine. Signs of the currency chaos can be seen everywhere, and travel agents offer vacation. Who's going to take a vacation? Only in hard currency. And the big news is, this is what is funny to me, diapers have disappeared from the shelves. This is you can use the black market money changers if you want 150,000 rials to the dollar, but Ayatollah Khomeini, Iran's supreme leader, called the U.S. moves economic sabotage this past weekend and specifically mentioned the diaper shortage. And this reminds me of the toilet paper shortage that they have in Venezuela.
Right.
But now diapers are shortage.
I was thinking maybe the diapers were like the tide was in Venezuela, which, remember, it became currency.
Oh yeah, well I don't know. That's a good question because what they're talking, I didn't realize this, but it turns out that 70% of the material for disposable diapers is imported, and so that
that's what it is.
That's what it is, right? Imagine that in Tehran and other major cities, baby diapers suddenly became scarce, and this is not this is not make believe. Khomeini talks about this apparently, this big deal. what gets me, of course, is what I find kind of interesting is I remember in my youth, with my kids, we had cloth diapers. There were no such thing as Pampers or anything like that when, shall
People
I say?
are spoiled now.
Yeah, no, I mean seriously, we had a pail and we had a lady that came by every week and carted them out and cleaned them all up and everything. But I mean, so they might not be able to get Pampers or whatever. But I'll tell you, if you got anything made out of cotton and you don't mind washing it.
Yeah, I would imagine they'll be able to ramp up production fairly fast.
Yeah.
But I think the overarching larger issue goes back to all of now there are a bunch of currencies out there floating around, and travel and exchange is at a rate at such that I think a lot of currencies are gonna take a nosedive.
Well, I think it is too. And of course, here what they said in this article was that the money, where you go and they have the things Swiss franc, French, and all that kind of stuff. As far as the U.S. dollar is blank. As far as the exchange rate on the U.S. dollar for reals, in other words, you could walk in there with however many you wanted, and we're not doing that.
Weird distortions. They're gonna mess with things. That's unfortunate.
Well, what's interesting to me in a way, what I thought was interesting. Apparently, the sanctions that Trump has put on these guys apparently have taken a hell of a bite. One of the reasons being that Trump threatened to put sanctions to get other countries that traded with them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, in foreign businesses were panic-stricken and said, well, we're not, we would like to get your money and we'd like to trade with you, but, then we're not going to be able to trade with the U.S.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely putting the squeeze on him.
Boy, he sure is.
We'll see what he gets out of it.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll use it for some good negotiations and it won't just be...
I don't know. I've always said sanctions are an act of war.
Well, and to me it depends on how they're used and how they're implemented. But I'm not in favor of... They never seem to have worked.
No.
They always seem to just...
It's amazing what happens is it's like the bombing of Dresden or something. It shores up. It makes people more fiercely...
Yeah.
You're not going to break the will of the people that way. You're just not going to do it.
Right.
They're going to coalesce.
Well, that's who you don't want to fight the people anyway.
Right.
You want to fight the government.
Yeah.
And so...
So when you suddenly find out that 10 million people are out of diapers, when you're going through 3 or 4 a day, I mean, you can get some pissed off people. That's for sure. No, that's and also the one.
There will be some.
The one. Do you have something else there that you want to talk about?
Trap-laden people. I got a couple of things. A couple of small things.
Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk about Kentucky.
Kentucky.
The Gators dropped the game.
Our local.
I heard.
Oh my God.
Okay.
That'll be good for ticket prices.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of things. You said Barack is back.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to say about that is, from my perspective, if the Democrats really want to beat Trump, what they should do is not give him targets. And because if he gets a target, he's going to go after it. He's going to unload on it. But if there's no targets, then he's just campaigning against himself, and he's bad at that because then it's just constantly a news cycle about himself. But
you mean about Obama?
Yeah. Well, no, about Trump.
About Trump.
Yeah.
So in other words, every time Obama goes out and talks, then Trump has a target.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
So I think that's going to backfire. I think that.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, one of the things that they did mention is that when Obama went out and was on the stump trail for the 2016, none of his people won.
Right. Well,
I mean, he was in there saying, "Elect my friend."
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. He'll give him ammo. All right. Did you notice today Sweden had a little change in the guard, slightly?
Yes. What's happened is they've had a tremendous right-wing reaction. Having lived in Sweden for almost a year, and of course it's back in the 60s when it was a lot different than it is today. But apparently the Muslim invasion or whatever is finally rousting up enough of the people so that this particular party, what they call anybody that wants to take their country back, of course, is called ultra right wing. But that was a party that didn't have any seats in parliament. But now they're up to I think there's like 8 or 10 parties in Sweden, and most of them are commie left or something. But there's this one now that has come up to about 20%, and that is a lot for considering the number of parties that there are. That's quite a big swing, and of course the establishment has come out and is in panic mode, because as they were here when Trump ran, and they're still in panic mode, because you're upsetting the way we've had things for decades. I mean, for 70 years, the Social Democrats. Now the Social Democrats in Sweden, interestingly enough, are a little bit different from Bernie. They really are. I mean, I lived in Sweden when it was high tax there, but in Sweden there was only 7 million people there, very homogeneous, so they'd get away with it. Never going to get away with it in this country. So anyway, but the point is that the establishment that has been in power for 50, 60, 70 years or whatever are absolute panic stricken, and because what's happened is they're seeing the breakdown. The massive breakdown. Of course, when you realize that a phenomenal number of the Swedes live in southern Sweden for obvious reasons, because it's warmer there for openers. But I mean, basically, it's Stockholm and Malmo and Uppsala and wherever I forget the place on the west coast. But the fact is, that's where the majority of the population is down in the lower fifth, the lower third anyway, but nobody up north, it's butt cold, having been there, I can tell you. So anyway, apparently this is the start of a real reaction, and it'll be interesting to see if it continues on. So this is kind of a wake-up call for somebody, because these people, this is brand new territory for these people, and the politics in Sweden are a little bit different than they are here, because again, they're mostly Swedes.
Well, yeah, I think, to me, the interesting thing about the story is what you said a moment ago, which was the population of Sweden, under 10 million people, and they absorbed 150,000 immigrants in 2015. If you think about it, of course, if there's 10 million people, every 100,000 is a whole percentage.
Right.
So...
well, it's not only that, they have concentrated.
Well, that's... exactly.
That's the real problem.
Well, you got to figure, because the Swedes are concentrated, also the immigrants will be concentrated.
They have basically taken over Malmo. A lot of people don't realize this, but the southern tip of Sweden, they actually speak a slightly different language. It's a little hard for me. It was a little harder to understand. It was called Skånska, and it was a little harder to understand than the Swedish that I learned. But that's where a lot of them are concentrated, is in that area. And then there's some no-go places apparently around Stockholm. But the police have always been really, they don't carry, I don't know if they carry guns or not, but basically they're not confrontational at all. And of course, when they, it reminds me a little bit of that game of that movie with, I think it was Wesley Snipes or something. They brought him out of freezing or something like that. But
oh, right, yeah. Everybody's like, oh, don't curse.
Yeah, don't curse, right? And of course he's saying, God, I've got it made here. He's on a rampage. And then they had to unfreeze. Who else did they unfreeze?
Sylvester Stallone.
Sylvester Stallone to take, So that was...
Adrian.
So anyway, that's one of the problems. Is that's the way the Swedish police are.
Right.
They're that kind of people.
Well, we'll see if the Sweden Democrats is the new quote unquote far right party.
Okay.
And so we'll see how they adjust to things, whether or not they take some measures. Apparently, they're trying to force that one issue, which is some type of immigration reform.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out. A corollary story we see over in France, there is a McDonald's.
Yes.
That was prevented from being sold. Yeah.
Or from being sold. Right.
The owner wanted to sell out because he was losing money.
Right. Well, this was down in Muslim territory, down in Marseille or something.
Well, this is in some place which apparently is now majority Muslim.
Right.
The McDonald's is allegedly the second largest employer in the area.
Okay.
Which is really scary.
Yeah.
Because that speaks to a pretty depressed area.
Okay. But of course, McDonald's sells hamburgers.
Well, right. And they were, there's actually been was that a different story about somebody who was going to be forced to? Oh, Subway was going to be forced to.
Yes, they had to remove pork or bacon or whatever from there. Yeah, I mean, the whole
in
bunch
some
of
other Muslim controlled area.
Yeah.
Which, you know, from my perspective, if the business owner can't sell, you wonder, are they allowed to raise their prices?
Right.
Because that would be the other way. You know, either cut costs, raise prices, or go out of business. Those are your choices when there's.
Well, apparently he was a franchise owner of more than one place.
Okay.
And he apparently managed to dump off
the other
4 or 5 of them. Yeah, but this is the one that the government came in and said you can't. You have to.
We see what you're doing here.
You see what you're doing, and you can't sell it. And of course, this is where, you know, private property. That's the first thing you can do is to dump it off. But so as you say, and again, I don't know. Maybe there's some price control thing in there where you can't raise prices.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on these quote unquote no-go zones or the Muslim-controlled areas in the newly minted areas in these.
Well, it is interesting when the people, you know, at what point do the people who have been, you know, the Gauls, the French or whatever, or the Swedes or whatever, or even Americans start to say, wait a minute, you know, we're losing it here. We gotta. Well,
normally it's just not a problem. And the reason is because the population can normally absorb another population. If you think about the size of countries these days, there's 200 different countries, let's just say. Many of them are in the millions of people, which means that there's a lot of people. You're not going to have a group, usually, of 1 million people leave their homeland unless there's some kind of hideous situation like in Syria, the giant war that's going on. So this is an unusual exodus of people, and most of the countries can accommodate very large numbers that would be fully within the numbers that would be immigrating. But Sweden, obviously, what happened was a bunch of the European countries closed their doors, and so these people trained all the way through Europe and went straight into Sweden,
which, by the way, has a bridge to it now. You used to take a ferry boat.
So they opened their doors just at the wrong time. They had just a sensitive enough population. Apparently the same things happened in Denmark. And there's a shift in terms of...
Well, you notice the Poles have said we're no mas, and the Norwegians are basically saying we're headed up to here.
So we'll see.
They're also, both of those are kind of homogeneous.
Yeah, you know, from our perspective, I mean, we have a much greater population, and we can absorb a lot more people because of that. And also, our entire structure is designed to absorb new people. I mean, we've been doing that for a long time, so we're...
Well, we've been doing it since 1966, but for 40 years prior to that, we didn't, you know, it was all not much at all.
Well, but then prior to that, there was tons and tons.
Yeah, prior to that, though, prior to that, there was wide open spaces.
Well, right. Yeah.
You'd go set up a brandy new town in Nebraska or something.
Right.
So.
Well, there's still lots of space, but all right. Well, we'll see. Two real quick stories. Let's see. Well, we only got 2 minutes left. But I guess these are pretty quick. So there was a mom who shot a home invader.
Yes.
With a gun. Unfortunately, she was a convicted felon. She had a prior marijuana conviction, which was a felony.
Yeah.
So her possession of that gun constitutes possession of gun by a convicted felon. She's probably going to prison because of that.
And of course, it's her husband's gun.
Right.
But still.
It doesn't matter. If it's in the home, that's close enough. And she has actual physical control of it according to the law.
She shot somebody.
Right, exactly. So this is my argument. When people talk about common sense gun regulations, this is a common sense deregulation. That is to say, instead of preventing all convicted felons from owning firearms, it should be limited to the prevention should be limited to, certainly limited to violent felonies. That is, felonies that involve some type of harm to some other person.
Right.
As opposed to a theft or a drug crime or something else which doesn't involve any type of violence. And my argument for this is something like, we can trust Martha Stewart with a gun.
Right.
And yet she's a convicted felon.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of Americans whose, in my opinion, Second Amendment rights are being infringed for no good reason.
Yeah.
This woman is one of them. Another related story, a cop walks into, she says,
This is so bogus.
well, and I'm with you on this one.
Boy, I'm
My
on
spidey
bullshit
sense
across
is
the board.
going off on this one too.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's the situation. The allegation is at this point that a cop went into the wrong home, thought it was her home.
Well, wrong apartment.
Right. Killed an intruder inside. And so now at first I thought, okay, well, it could happen. I mean, certainly we've all, I think, everybody has at one time or another walked up to the wrong door, and you can see if you're in an apartment situation how it could be your place, and you could still make a mistake because all the doors could look alike.
Of course, she was on the wrong floor.
Okay, well, even,
Okay.
similar, if all the entrances look alike, sometimes the exteriors are controlled by the condominium association, the apartment complex, and so
Okay.
they're all uniform.
Okay, they all look the same. Okay, now
Right,
what?
so she walks in there, but the problem is, she's got to be disoriented enough to walk inside the wrong place.
How'd she get in?
Well, must have been unlocked. Well, I'm saying that another thing, and then she had to be alert and awake enough to draw and shoot straight, which, as anybody who's shot a gun knows, that's kind of difficult.
Well, she's a cop, though.
She's trained, it's
Okay.
true. But if she was wasted, like some allegation was, that would explain why she walked into the wrong place, then how good of a shot is she going to be? Exactly, and what's she going to say or do? She could, I would think, be easily overpowered. Not that this guy would try because he's a Christian, choir singer.
Right.
But my point is that the story doesn't add up, and we
Well,
haven't heard any details yet.
We actually heard one more rumor.
Oh, okay.
They dated.
Oh, well, dude, then it's over.
Yeah, they dated.
If they dated,
They
she's
dated.
going
That was
down.
that's the rumor. That's the latest rumor is that they dated.
Well, that makes sense, and that would be the kind of thing, and that makes sense. And then the story really is, were the police covering for her from the get-go? That is to say, what we heard so far is such a limited account of facts.
Right.
It was screened.
Oh yeah, don't even know her name.
And and so it's like they're protecting her already.
Yeah,
so.
she was just coming off duty.
Yeah, well.
And so, I mean, what was she doing? Wasted?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no, like
Well,
you
they
said,
took her blood, so they tested her. So we'll see what that comes up. But
and
I'm
they
with you.
tested her. Okay, good.
It could be bad. It could be
Right.
ugly. But
There's somebody else's blood.
yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
everybody, for tuning in.
Ran over a minute or two, but that's okay. So we'll be back. But we will be back on Wednesday
Yes.
with new stuff.
Yep.
And leave us a note. Say, like our thing or whatever it is, but leave us a note or something if you want to talk
Oops.
about it.
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up our awesome bumper music here, and I'm getting commercialized. There it is.
Okay.
Because we pay so much for the music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, thanks for tuning in. If you did, if you didn't or you couldn't, like I said, I'm going to upload a new copy here real quick. So, hope you enjoy it. Send us a message and tune back in on Wednesday at 4, the Jimmy Doane Show on YouTube. So, we'll see you soon.
You'll see us.
Yeah.